Hello, I'm Larry Lee with Brownfield Ag News. Randy Romanski joins us from the Department of Ag Trade and Consumer Protection in Wisconsin. He is the Secretary Designee. Let's look back at 2020, the unusual year for just about everything, thanks to COVID-19. Randy, it's been a challenging year. DACAP's had to change how it operates. What's it been like?
It's been a really strange year, Larry, for all of us. COVID-19's had tremendous effects on all of us, on the economy, on people's lives and health, obviously. But even before COVID hit, in the past several years, our farmers have been dealing with a variety of issues: low commodity prices, extreme weather patterns, international trade uncertainty, and now COVID came upon all of us. Severe disruptions of the supply chain, and we've learned a lot along the way. And one of the things that we've done at DACAP is that we've learned to adjust how we provide services, and still make sure we're being a resource to the consumers and to the industry that we support. Some of that means that we just had to do things differently. In some cases, we went to virtual settings. We had weekly conference calls with our partners, our stakeholders across all of agriculture, so we could stay in touch with what was going on. And from the department side of things, we had to pivot. We had to learn how to do things differently. In some cases, we changed our inspections to remote wherever we could, or virtual. We developed online platforms for delivering exams. We switched up the timing of some of the things we do. So we've had to pivot. The industry's had to pivot. Farmers have had to pivot. Consumers have had to pivot. It's been a challenging year.
As far as those inspection programs go, any serious problems with staying caught up, getting the inspections done?
Actually, we've been really fortunate. Our customers, our partners in the industry have been receptive to the kinds of ways that we've pivoted. We've had to adjust some of our timelines where maybe we changed the frequency a little bit. But the important things where we need to have, I'm going to change that for just a second, Larry. All the inspections are important, obviously, but the kinds of things where we need to be there in person, things like with the meat processing industry for slaughter, we need to be there. For some of the dairy plant processes, we need to be there for those things to happen. We've still had people in person doing those kinds of inspections with appropriate personal protective equipment and social distancing, things of that nature.
As far as the inspectors themselves, is there a shortage of inspectors yet, or are you doing okay there?
Well, Larry, we could always use more resources at DACAP, but we also realize that we have to make sure we're stewards of taxpayers' dollars. So our staff is working extremely hard, like they always do. And in some cases, we've had to do some additional overtime or bring on some LTEs, especially with inspectors, just to keep up. But we've been keeping up.
Some big events in Wisconsin have been impacted by COVID-19, the various restrictions and lockdowns. The first one to come to my mind is World Dairy Expo, a huge event, the championship cheese contest, a lot of meetings, conventions. This virus has really taken its toll on a lot of the things we call normal.
It certainly has, Larry, and you mentioned a couple of obvious examples, and you could add to that the county fairs, the dairy breakfasts, the state fair, all of which have had to cancel or adjust, and those are all significant events. They mean a lot to Wisconsin's economy. They mean a lot in how we showcase agriculture in Wisconsin. In cases like the World Dairy Expo, that's an international stage. So clearly we miss out on those opportunities by not having had the opportunity to have them during 2020. But it does kind of help help us redouble our resolve so that when those events come back, hopefully this year, or whenever they come back strong, we'll continue to throw ourselves into them. We'll continue to use them as opportunities to support and promote all that Wisconsin agriculture has for the world. And I guess we have to look forward to getting back engaged with those activities again.
I don't know about you, but I was impressed with how some of these events made their COVID adjustments. The one that come to mind first was how State Fair did their drive-through with the food fair. That was pretty innovative and it worked.
That was really impressive, Larry, and they pivoted too. They transitioned to different types of foods. They did cocoa cream puffs recently, which was another creative thing. That's a really creative group of promoters, marketers, advocates for Wisconsin agriculture. So that's great. You know, we heard from some of the dairy breakfasts where they were finding creative ways to do drive-through dairy breakfast. So it wasn't breakfast on the farm, but you could go through a drive-through, get all the fixins, and you could still have your dairy breakfast. It's just a little different. I mean, everything in 2020 just seems a little different this year, Larry. And another thing that I would point out is Alice in Dairyland. Julia, our new Alice in Dairyland, and actually Abigail, our prior Alice in Dairyland, created new ways to connect with people and still promote Wisconsin agriculture using virtual platforms and conference calls and video conferencing. And it's been really impressive to see how they've embraced the opportunity to still promote agriculture in a different platform. And you know, we're looking forward to when we can do things in person again, but we've seen a lot of creativity this year.
With COVID-19, there were CARES Act dollars sent to the states for use at the state's discretion. And Governor Evers used some of those dollars for several things. The Farm Support Program comes to mind with the direct payments to farmers, round one and round two. Food security efforts at the state level. Also, the recent ethanol processor assistance. Those all three big things for the money to go to that were necessary, correct?
Yes, that's true. So all total, Governor Evers has dedicated almost $80 million in federal CARES Act funding towards Wisconsin agriculture and food this year. We've been fortunate to sorry.
It happens to me.
We've been fortunate to work with. There, I'll take care of it now. I'll turn that off. We've been fortunate to work with a really dedicated group of stakeholders who have worked with us to establish processes. Larry, you mentioned the Farm Support Program. We worked with agriculture groups representing farmers throughout that process. Organizations asked Governor Evers to dedicate funding for through the CARES Act to help farmers at a really challenging time. The governor committed $50 million for direct payments, and we worked with those same groups to work on a distribution system, the timing to try to make sure that those dollars could get out quickly. The $25 million that the governor invested in food security initiative practices was really helpful at the right time to connect people in Wisconsin, those who were food insecure, with healthy, nutritious food that was grown and processed right here in the state of Wisconsin. And so we were fortunate to have a network of food pantries, food closets, food distribution systems who were ready, willing, and able to put those dollars to use. And then just recently, the governor set aside up to $3.25 million for the ethanol industry, clearly an industry that was hit hard early by COVID-19, and an industry that has a lot of offshoots into other parts of Wisconsin's agriculture economy, whether it's having a market for high quality corn, being able to capture CO2 for food processing, or in some instances, making sure that we have the capacity to produce dry ice. It's a multi-layered industry, and we appreciate the governor working quickly to distribute funding there as well.
And on the ethanol industry, I've had a couple of people just in the last month or so tell me, I didn't know Wisconsin had 9 ethanol plants. And it's a lot more to it than what the average person sees just driving down the road or through the fields. They don't know what's out there until something like this comes along, and they learn about, wow, we have 9 plants that need this help.
It really is, and this probably isn't the first time you've heard these words roll out of my mouth, Larry, but I often talk about homegrown renewable energy, and Wisconsin is a strong proponent of that, and the ethanol industry has been strong here in the state for a while. And so this effort on behalf of the governor to try to address some of those losses for the ethanol industry was really timely, and the industry was really appreciative of the assistance as well.
Restaurants continue to suffer the effects of less traffic due to COVID and various other restrictions, supply chain problems as well. Do you know if the governor has anything in the pipeline for maybe CARES Act dollars or other assistance to help restaurants?
Well, you're right, Larry. Restaurants were a part of the industry that was affected pretty early and often during COVID-19. We talked earlier about creativity. There are people who have been very creative in the restaurant industry, whether it's drive-through, carry-out, pickup options, curbside pickup options that have been created as a result of COVID-19, and some restaurants, if they're able to, have been able to embrace that. But clearly, there's been a dramatic impact. I mean, people have changed the way they've gone out. They clearly go out much less, and that's had an impact on restaurants in Wisconsin. That impacts some of the industry, the agriculture industry, that supplies restaurants, and there was some supply chain disruptions there as well. So there have been some avenues for some of those businesses to apply for federal CARES funding, some of which went through other agencies. Right now, Larry, I think what we're seeing is we're getting down to the very, very end of the CARES Act funding availability and quite honestly timing. But there's with the CARES Act, I think the dollars that are allocated at this point are going out the door. So I don't know if there's anything else that can be done with that pot of money. But clearly, as we move forward, there will be, we believe, other instances where the federal level may provide some additional support for industries that have been affected by COVID-19.
Follow up on that. Wasn't that long ago, Wisconsin announced that they would be assisting some of the marketers with the electronic payment hardware, software to make some of these hands-free deals easier. Also easier for the consumers to purchase from farmers directly and other merchants. How's that going?
Well, that's a program that's been set up by the Department of Health Services, and they've tried to work with folks in the industry to get that up and going. I know that it's just recently been announced, so I'm hopeful that that's making those kinds of connections that we would hope. One of the things we saw, Larry, with the Food Security Act is that right here in Wisconsin, farmers grow and businesses process so many foods that you have access to so much of what you might want to consume. It's really important to try to connect those dots. And as we establish programs, whether it's the food security network that the governor supported or this new system, we're just hopeful that we can connect good, wholesome Wisconsin grown and processed food with people who are in need right now.
One for the lighter side of questions here. You've been on the job now at DACAP as the interim secretary, then the secretary designee for the past 13 months. Any idea when the state Senate might make this official so you can drop one more word from that title?
Thanks for the question, Larry. Well, I'll start off by saying I really appreciate the governor's confidence in my abilities to help be a resource to the agriculture industry and support consumers in the state. The confirmation process is a process that I've actually embraced, and I'm looking forward to going through. I've had really good conversations with legislators as part of that. That's one of my responsibilities, I believe, is to make sure I'm communicating in an open, transparent way with all of our stakeholders, including legislators. So I'm actually just enjoying the process, having conversations with legislators, and I look forward to. I'm assuming that once we get into January and the legislature comes back into town, I'll continue to work my way through the process. I'm looking forward to that process.
Anything you'd like to add today?
Well, Larry, I would just say it's been a challenging year for all of us, whether we're talking about the agriculture industry or citizens whose lives have been affected, or perhaps it's even affected their health or the health of a loved one. And so we're just really looking forward to having 2021 be we'll turn the page on 2020 and let's move forward and start off 2021, and hopefully we can get COVID can be behind us, and then we can work on the things that we're really looking forward to working on, which is supporting, promoting our strengths. Agriculture is a strength in Wisconsin. It's a $104.8 billion industry. 1 in 9 jobs in the state of Wisconsin are related to agriculture in some way. That's a strength of our state. It's a strength of our economy, our rural prosperity. And we're looking forward to continuing to invest in that, working with our stakeholders. There are a variety of other strengths that we think we can build on, even though it was identified as potential challenges. So disruption in the supply chain for things like livestock and meat infrastructure. What was a challenge to make sure that animals weren't being euthanized instead of being used for protein, allowed us to work with our partners, including small Main Street meat processors, so that they could take on some of those animals. One of the things we realize is that this is an opportunity to continue working with them, seeing if there are ways that we can invest in their supply chain resiliency, so that they can grow and innovate for years to come. We look forward to working with the governor and the legislature on things like broadband expansion and investing in rural prosperity. So 2020 was a challenge, Larry, but we're looking forward to the opportunities that 2021 brings, when we can be out there, continue to advocate for the agriculture industry and for consumers.
Secretary Designee Randy Romanski with Wisconsin Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. Now, before we go, I do have one little surprise. Since it is the end of the year, we know that you are, the face of the organization and the spokesman, but you have a right-hand person that does a lot of the things behind the scenes. Grace, turn your camera back on. Grace Atherton does a lot of work with the department, and she pretty much helps you on everything, doesn't she?
Grace is fantastic. Larry, you know this because you get a chance to work with her, but for those of you who don't know Grace is part of everything we do at the agency, because she helps communicate to the world what DACCAP is doing and how we operate. So, it's important for us to tell the story of agriculture, and Grace helps do that every day.
So as we get ready to wrap up the year, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all of you, and hopefully 2021 is a much better year.
Happy holidays, everybody. Larry, thanks for having us on today, and take care, everybody.
Thank you.